Hi, it's me Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe my channel and visit my Patreon page, link in the description.
Doing so, you surely didn't impress us. Both you and your friend sat down, assuming we would approve. Instead of being open-minded, you immediately challenged our sincerity and expertise, without first inquiring into the nature of our experience. In plain English, you're a typical egotistical male, deeply mired in your own pompous, vain impressions of self-importance. Forgive me for being so brash, but I feel that pointing out a few most obvious weaknesses would demonstrate the depth of our perception into your behaviors. She had sized me up and made mincemeat of my character in less than a minute, based on less than 10 minutes of observation. I had to admit it. I hadn't behaved very gentlemanly. She saw all the incidental things I hadn't paid mind to that made me appear to be much less than a true gentleman in her estimation. I wondered how many times other people got the same impression from my lack of attention to the finer social graces. Well, I guess I had that coming, Myra. Can we start all over? I guess I could use some cultural pointers after all. How about you, Bill? Hey, count me in. I like what she said so far. Always knew your head was screwed on backwards, Phil. You have no right to speak of him in that way in the company of guests you hardly met, Bill. I can see that your manners are worse than Phil's. Why didn't you stand up when Phil did and wait until you are invited to sit back down in the presence of your guests? Phil, at least, had the presence of mind to notice his initial indiscretion and corrected it. You sat down after your lame excuse for a greeting with people you should be happy to meet. I should resent your behaving like we are old friends. I truly believe that you also failed to realize that you are being rude with your glib candor. It's no wonder that you lost your job if you treat everyone that you meet like they are cocktail lounge acquaintances. I suppose that you think you can change all that and remake us into some kind of dull zombies that bow at the waist and stand stiffly at attention. Get real, lady. Bill said it with a cocky smirk on his face. We don't need to stoop that low to get by. Revulsion. That's totally expected behavior for an egotist. You are going to be fun to teach, Bill. Are you afraid that your personality is really what may have cost you your precious job? Why? Face the reality. You're out of work. Why should it be important to you? What you've been doing so far hasn't been very successful. Why not try a new tack? We tried to approach you cordially, but by your responses, I think that you resented our offer. I think that we would need to correct what must interpret as a less than enthusiastic estimation of our technical capability to inspire you to improve your manners. Macho ego won't let you admit that women may be able to help you learn how to be more of a polite gentleman. Just say the word, and we'll be happy to leave. We merely wanted to be nice to unfortunate neighbors by offering the benefit of our newly gained experience. Bill reacted like she hit a sore spot. I've gotten by pretty good so far without needing any guidance counselors. I'd feel funny trying to fake acting like somebody I'm not. I appreciate the offer, girls, but I'm not crazy about taking some old ladies out on the town to bleed them of their money. If Phil wants to, he can, not me. Count me out. I understand, Bill. I'm sorry if we offended you. Well, think about it. There's no hurry. Not everyone is suited for being lavished with luxury while make a good living. If you should change your minds, I'm sure you know where to find us. Shall we go, Carla? I was hoping we'd have a chance to get to know these two women better. There's no need for you to rush off so soon. Please. You're the first other tenants from the apartment building we've met, socially. Won't you at least stay long enough to finish your sodas? Bill isn't giving you a chance to explain what's involved. I'm not sure that I'm really interested, but I'd like to hear more about how you'd help us learn how to be charming. Forget Bill. I'd like to know more about what would be expected. Maybe I'll try it. She stood up. Smiling, she stated that any further explanation, with Bill's undermining every effort she made, would be a pure waste of her time. She made it clear that she felt he would try to thwart them, no matter how beneficial their advice would be. When they left, Bill and I started to argue. I pointed out that if the idea was a bummer, we weren't obligated to pay them. It wouldn't cost us anything. I told him he could have been more polite, at least until we got to know them better. They were both foxes, and I would have been thrilled to get the chance to date either one. Instead, Bill chose to cut them off short and ruined our big chance. I suggested he really needed some etiquette classes to learn how to act around women better. That resulted in a round of invectives and innuendos regarding his earlier behavior. After about an hour or more of heated debate, we ended up in stoic silence, a stalemate, not willing to admit the other's words had any merit. She was right about one thing. Bill's pride was bruised. The day went by without Bill and I addressing the issue again. The next morning, I had successfully ducked out of the landlord's site while confiscating daily newspapers other tenants didn't bother to pick up or were distributed after they had left for work. I'd scour the want ads and replace the newspapers neatly where I had found them, so no one would mind my borrowing them for a few hours while they were working. The next morning, as I was returning to our flat, my luck ran out. The landlord caught me bending over to pick up a paper and confronted me. "Those aren't here for you to take without asking." Hell, go ahead. I do it all the time. Just be sure you don't tear out anything from them. Copy what you want down. Return the paper to where you found it. That was all he said. For once, he didn't mention the back rent, as was his custom. A glint of a sheepish smile showed on his face just for a second instead of his usual scowl, before he turned away, ignoring me completely. I stood there in appreciative disbelief. Then, I recalled what Myra had said about him not being a bother to us anymore. I shrugged it off to my overactive imagination. Maybe I was being too cynical about him before, and the guy was just doing his job, as he thought was best. In any event, I decided that I wasn't going to worry about it further. I set the paper down on the kitchenette counter and mentioned the chance meeting with the landlord in the hallway to Bill. He was actually polite, by his standards. Bill didn't rub my nose in the dirt about the rent, either. It's not like him. Something's wrong. He must have filled out the necessary paperwork for our eviction. That's it. He's written us off as a pair of deadbeats, and we'll be hearing from the sheriff's department. Damn. What do we do now, Phil? I don't know about you, pal, but I'm going to pay a visit to Myra Benson and tell her that I've reconsidered. If we get thrown out in the cold now, we've a lot to lose. We haven't a way to preserve our meager possessions. We might get by, sleeping somewhere like the airport's main terminal, acting like travelers between flights, until our clothes get shabby. But do you have the price of a storage unit to keep what little we own in, until we figure a way out of this mess? We better do some quick thinking. I was the one who cut her short, Phil. Let me go. I'll apologize properly and tell her that we are between a rock and a hard place. If she senses that I'm being sincere, and promise her to not ridicule her training efforts, we might pull in enough dough to get Hitler off our backs until one of us lands a decent job. I don't like the taste of crow, but we haven't much choice. Besides, I have a better chance of getting hired as an escort than you do. What is that supposed to mean? Hey, it's nothing personal. I just mean that I'm taller, I have dark chisel features, and I have a better build. You don't work out enough like I do. If I volunteer instead of you, I think that I'll do much better at it. No sense in both of us demeaning ourselves for some money. You can make it up to me later, after you go back to work at a regular job. You do better than me? In your dreams, Billy boy. Hey, I told you never to call me that. I can take you in a heartbeat, so don't provoke me. If you have half a brain, you know that I'm right. This is only a temporary measure until the job market recovers. It must be lucrative if the girls are willing to accept such a small cut of the take. We need the dough. Besides, it's been one hell of a long dry spell. I could use some tender loving care from eager bed partners, even if they're past their prime. Turn them upside down and they're all alike, I always say. One's as good as another. Sounds to me like you're trying to talk yourself into it. So what if I am? Think I like the idea of being some old biddy sex object. I don't think you'll get away with it, Bill. You can't hide that kind of emotional dislike for what you'll be doing. You're too callous about it. It'll show and you'll be a flop. Think so? We'll see about that. Myra thinks she could make a love doll out of me. Well, let's put her to the test. You ridiculed me too. Remember? You said I needed grooming, as if you don't. Well, I'm about to find out if I have what it takes. We'll see who's better at being a hired stud. Who knows? Maybe I'll like being a fancy Dan. I could do worse. I think you're headed in the wrong direction, Bill. Your ego is getting in the way. You think it's wise, getting into this, acting like a prize bull in a china shop? I'd soft pedal it with Myra if I were you. I've got a hunch she can make mincemeat out of you if you go there with a chip on your shoulder. Play it cool, dude. Soften up your approach. That's the trouble with you, Phil. You have no class. Dames drool over guys that have their act together. I've been thinking about nothing but this scam ever since Myra sprung it on us. Call it what she likes, she's nothing more than a madam in a seersucker suit. For what it's worth, I'm about to begin a career of male escort. You think the landlord has gone soft because he's getting eviction papers? Not me. I think that he knows we're about to come into money, and he wants a cut, so he's changing his tune. That's just like you, Bill. You think the worst about everyone. I know I'm right, pal. Say, I better go. You're too easygoing. You don't stand a chance. I'm wise to their game. I'll play, but I'll use my own rules. You'd be too shocked at what they can spring on you to know how to duck and recover. It's better I go to protect you. You egotistical no good. What makes you think that I'm more vulnerable than you are? Never mind. Go. There's no conceit in your family. You've got it all. Keep my mother and my family out of this. Just for that, I'm going to prove that I know what I'm talking about. I'll go first. If I don't fare well, then you try. See if you can do better. We'll see who knows the score, pal. Hey, interested in making a bet on it? I think you've lost all your marbles, but I'll take that bet with pleasure. Let me think for a minute. Let's make it worthwhile. After initial training, we each can give it a month. Whichever of us gets to make more money as an escort in 1 month is the winner, and the loser pays the next month's rent. All of it. Fair enough. Better yet, let's give it 2 months and raise the stakes to 2 months' rent. She's got to train us in fancy social graces first, then check up on our progress, remember. That means the winner will be declared in 3 months if we're still around. Right? That depends on you. I think it will be obvious, and you'll default when you see that you haven't got a chance. The way Myra was bragging, I should be in demand in no time. What a jerk. Oh, by the way, I want to add one condition to the bet, Bill. No dirty tricks. If one of us interferes in any way with the other's progress, the other is declared winner by default. I intend to play fair, but want it known clearly from the start that regardless of the outcome, doing anything to disrupt the training or interfering with a date in any way would be deemed to be an admission of total defeat. We must agree further to follow all of their advice to the letter, even if it's ridiculous. My. You sound as if you don't trust me, Phil. I was about to impose similar rules myself. Difference is, I want to add that neither of us can interfere with progress made in regard to our trainers, too. Both of us would prefer to date Myra, so the loser gets Carla. If the girls are as good at being guidance counselors as they claim, we should both be stud muffins in a month and close friends, meaning the girls will be drooling over us. Okay. So be it. You're out of your mind. Do you know that? What in the world makes you think a powerful woman like Myra prefers a man who's on an ego trip? She doesn't appear to be the type to me. I'll bet she likes the quiet type like me. Name the stakes. No way. I'm not about to bet on a woman's preferences. That would be too insane and likely to prove disastrous. What would happen if she found out we're wagering over her like that? We'd be on the top of her shit list, that's what. That reminds me. We better tell them about the wager we are making. If they think it will cause problems, they may nix the bet. We had best be forthright about it with them. No sense in starting out on a per footing. They're too nice to be devious with. Let's play it straight. We'd be out in the cold, in a flash, if you were right about their interceding for us with the landlord. You may be right, you know. He would probably still be terse with us, even if he plans to evict us. So, since he seems to have cooled down somewhat, they may have interceded, like they said. Let's not draw any conclusions until we talk to the girls.
Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.